All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most personal mysteries there is, free will. You know that feeling, right? That deep down sense that you're the one calling the shots in your own life. But then there's physics, which seems to paint a very different picture. A story of cause and effect, where everything might have been locked in place since the beginning of time. So what's the deal? Are our choices for real, or is it all just a really convincing illusion?
The philosopher William James, he just nailed this feeling. I mean, think about those huge life-altering moments. Do I take this job? Do I end this relationship? Do I pack up and move halfway across the country? In those moments, man, it really feels like the future is genuinely unwritten. It feels like everything hangs on what you decide to do, right here, right now.
And that right there, that's the freedom paradox. You have this powerful, undeniable feeling of being in charge, and it just slams right up against this idea from classical physics of a universe that's, well, basically on rails, unfolding like a perfect clockwork machine. It feels like one of them has to be wrong. How can both of those things possibly be true at the same time?
So the classic view goes something like this. If you could somehow know the exact state of every single particle at the Big Bang, you could, in theory, calculate the entire future of the universe. Every star, every planet, and yep, even every single decision you were ever going to make. In a universe like that, our feeling of free will starts to look less like a real thing and more like a ghost in the machine.
And this is the exact question that got to philosopher Jeanne Ismail. She really felt the weight of this problem. I mean, if you take physics seriously, how on earth do you make sense of your own experience of making a choice? Her hunt for an answer didn't lead her where you'd expect, though. It led her to a totally startling discovery, hiding not in philosophy, but in the very fabric of modern physics.
Because it turns out that whole idea of a deterministic, clockwork universe, well, it isn't the whole story. Professor Ismail found a crack in that old idea, and the clue was hiding in plain sight, inside one of the biggest ideas in all of science, Einstein's theory of relativity.
Okay, so think about it like this. In the old-school Newtonian model, to predict something, you'd need a snapshot of everything in the entire universe all at the same instant. But relativity completely changed the rules of the game. It introduced a universal speed limit, the speed of light. And that means to predict an event, you don't need to know about everything. You only need to know about the stuff in its direct causal past, the things that could have actually had time to get to it and affect it.
And this whole region has a name. It's called the past light cone. The easiest way to think about it is to picture yourself at the very tip of this cone. Everything inside that cone, stretching all the way back into the past, is all the information from all the events that could possibly have reached you by now. But anything outside that cone? Doesn't matter what it is, it's moving too slow. It simply can't affect you, right here, right now. It's the universe's ultimate, you must be this tall to ride rule, in action.
Okay, and this is where it gets really mind-bending. Here's the first big revelation. Even if you had perfect, godlike knowledge of every single thing inside an event's past light cone, you still couldn't predict that event with 100% certainty. And why not? Because of the way space-time is structured, new information is always arriving from just outside your current cone. So perfect prediction from inside the universe, it's not just really, really hard, it is physically impossible.
But that physical limit on what we can predict, that's just the beginning. The mystery actually gets way deeper when we step away from physics and into pure logic. Turns out, there's a fundamental limit that applies to any system, and that includes us, that's trying to understand reality from the inside.
Professor Ismail came up with this brilliant thought experiment to show this. Come on, let's try it. Imagine we've got it, the ultimate computer, a perfect database, an oracle that contains every single physical fact about our entire universe. You can ask it any yes or no question about reality, and it is hardwired to always give a truthful answer.
So, you walk up to this perfect all-knowing machine, and you type in a very specific, kind of sneaky, self-referential question. You ask it, is the answer you are about to give me no? Now, this is a perfectly simple question about a future physical event, the letters that are going to pop up on its own screen. So, what happens?
Well, the database is completely trapped. Think about it. If it prints yes, it's lying because the answer wasn't no. If it prints no, it's also lying because it's confirming the premise that the answer would be no. It literally cannot give a truthful answer about its own immediate future action. And this logical short circuit is what led Professor Ismail to her very candid, very human reaction, what the fuck?
And what this reveals is something absolutely profound. Any system that is a part of the reality it's trying to describe, and that includes you and me, can never ever have a complete, total picture of the whole thing. And this isn't because we're not smart enough or we don't have enough data. Nope, it is a fundamental, logical feature of reality itself.
There's just no God's eye view available from the inside. It's a feature, not a bug. So what on earth does all this mean for us? For our feeling of freedom? Well, this is where everything beautifully clicks into place. That fundamental incompleteness we just found. It's not a flaw in the universe. It is the very space where our freedom gets to operate. It is the open canvas on which we get to create ourselves.
So instead of seeing an open, unpredictable future as some kind of lack of information or a void, we should see it as the necessary condition for our actions to be meaningful. The future isn't some movie that's already been filmed that we're just watching. It is genuinely open. And in that openness, we don't just passively exist, we act.
Let's just take a quick look at how life itself has evolved to take advantage of this openness. A simple bacterium, it's pretty much hardwired to just swim toward a magnetic field. A frog has a more complex brain for sure, but its design is still pretty much fixed. Its tongue just automatically snaps at any little dark thing that zips by. But humans, we're different. We don't just have fixed hardware. We spend our entire lives building our own software. We have this massive capacity for onboard self-curated information.
And that right there, that is the heart of what a self really is. You are a unique, constantly evolving information structure. You aren't just reacting to the world based on some preset programming. You are actively, choice by choice, building the very machinery you will use to make all of your future decisions.
I mean, just think about all the ways you do this every single day. The friends you decide to keep, the books you choose to read, the news you consume, what you decide is worth paying attention to. All of this is actively shaping your internal world. Your plans, your priorities, your hopes, your dreams. These are not just passive thoughts floating around. They are the living architecture of yourself, and you're building it piece by piece, decision by decision. So when a choice comes from that internal structure, it is truly, authentically coming from you.
So let's tie all these threads together. This incredible new way of looking at physics and logic doesn't just make room for our freedom, it reveals that every single one of us is a truly, deeply, irreplaceable pattern in the cosmos.
So here it is, the big takeaway. Your freedom isn't some kind of magic. It's an emergent property. It's the natural result of you, a unique, self-creating being making real choices inside a reality that isn't broken or flawed, but is fundamentally, and I think beautifully, incomplete.
And this makes each of us unbelievably precious. Professor Ismail puts it in this really powerful way. She says that when a person dies, what's lost isn't just a physical body. What's lost is that entire, unique, self-curated inner world. That unbelievably complex pattern of information that was built over a whole lifetime. And that loss, she says, is absolute and irretrievable. It's a pattern that will never, ever exist again.
So all of this leaves us with one last, very personal question. In this open universe, with the genuine freedom to build your own internal world, choice by choice, what unique pattern are you creating?